Recording is on.
Hello and welcome to the DXDAO BizDev call for 14th of March 2022. Um, yeah, on the for discussions today, we have a few topics, and yeah, I think maybe we'll just start with them. Look at the topics. So the first one is sort of like the commission report for DXD bonding curve. Uh, Tammy, do you want to take sway? I know you're short on time.
Yeah, let me just give background and then
Yeah, sure.
Tammy can join in. But so in general, yeah, this is very new stuff for DAOs in general, and Tammy actually helped lead this. But one of the things we've realized, when we were looking at mainly DX Ventures things, but also I think with the sponsorship with the esports team, is there are people and entities that will interact with as a DAO, and uh, they may need some due diligence that the money coming from DXDAO is not, for example, terrorist money or something like that, right? And so the main project that we did this for so far is Hats, which was, Hats took an investment grant from DX Ventures from DXDAO, and in their country, their lawyers needed to be sure that, or they wanted to be more confident that money that was coming from DXDAO was, not uh, bad money, I guess. I don't know what the right word is. And so Tammy actually worked with a chain analysis company, and they did a report. It was kind of a trial, and it was a private report, and that was given to the Hats team, and that they passed that on to the lawyers. And then when the money came from DXDAO, I think they were confident that they did, due diligence on that money that they received, and they were comfortable with it, and their lawyers were comfortable with it. And so we've had a couple other scenarios where we think that we're going to need this type of report in the future as well. We've already kind of been asked for it a couple of times. It hasn't been required yet. And in the meantime, yeah, Tammy had been looking at, and Dave is also helping. And I've also met some people in Denver from, for example, chain analysis, and they know that this is an issue in general in the space, and they've started creating some tools that DAOs can use for this specific type of thing, and then they can also do one-off reports for different parties. And obviously, there's a cost to hiring any of these companies that do this kind of reporting. And then the question is can this report be made public, or would you only share it with specific one-off people that need to see this report? It would be pretty cool if it was, I guess, fully public, because it would give confidence like across the board. And then there's two pieces of this. There's a report of all addresses that gave ETH to the bonding curve, which is in the treasury now, and that received DXD off this bonding curve. And then there's a separate idea of doing some type of analysis on all rep wallet holder addresses. And that is not something that we've been asked for in the past, but it's something that could be useful in the future. And so this big overall topic is something that, the DAO could be requesting people to do this type of analysis. It makes it more transparent. If there were wallets that were identified as sanctioned or FACTA and things like that, then there could potentially be, well, I don't think that happened with DXD addresses, so I don't know what we would do if that was on the bonding curve. But if there was a rep holder where there was rep in a wallet that was a sanctioned wallet or something, there would be a decision by the DAO, or there could be a decision by the DAO if the DAO wanted to burn that reputation or something like that. But we haven't ever looked at something like that. And so these two topics and then this overall topic is something we just wanted to talk about. And Tammy probably knows the most about it. She can chime in now. But we're getting close to having the ability to ask for these reports, but we haven't asked for these reports yet, and we haven't, move this process forward just yet, even though we've talked about this in the past. And so we wanted to get some consensus on if the community thinks that having these reports, either private or publicly, is a useful thing for the DAO to have.
Thanks, Guy. Can you guys hear me? I have my headphones in. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so actually, I think so maybe it was Q1 of Q4 of 2021, I think we had approved some funds for a report being done just like this. And I believe, and I have to look back, that it was for both DXD and Rep because we had a contractor, just a quick recap, a little more specific. We had like a trial period with CipherTrace and we did a report. I think that it was somewhat hastily done. And I think that Chainalysis's software is a bit better to where we can like one, make things a little bit more fine-tuned to like not list people that are addresses that interact with like Uniswap or other decentralized exchanges as somewhat high risk. Chainalysis and TRM labs, you can like remove that as even like a factor in like considering, high risk addresses. And then of course, like as Sky discussed, like really just sanctioned addresses and interactions with addresses that have been clearly identified as, funneling terrorist money, child exploitation, things like that. So the cool thing with like the reports is that you can actually get very specific on like the type of conduct that you do and don't consider appropriate or inappropriate. So it doesn't have to be some huge blunt force blanket, every single factor that maybe some government thinks is inappropriate. You also look at it that way. You can actually like specify it and like make it very specific to like the values of the organization. So the one thing regarding the DXD, like Sky said, that money essentially funds the treasury. So that's why that comes up a lot with DX Ventures. Dave can chime in here. I think we've also had different moments where the rep holder addresses, because they hypothetically can control the treasury, are also a point of interest for hypothetically being able to control these funds, and they control the organization, right? So that would be something that's good just to like review and look at. And if there are any quote unquote sanctioned addresses that are somehow, able to have a vote in DXDAO matters, hypothetically, it would be good to remove those addresses from, being able to have voting power over the treasury. Obviously cross that bridge when we get to it, but it would be good at least to have the report. I would be for complete transparency in something like this, especially where we can like choose what types of things to value and care about, and make it so we're I don't think decentralized exchange interaction obviously would be something we'd consider as a high risk behavior, but anything regarding child exploitation, sanctions, usually when it comes to certain types of sanctions, like certain addresses that are known to basically been proven by a court to funnel terrorist funds, those are the types of addresses you probably don't want to associate with. So the report would basically have all that information in it. We can go through it, and then usually there's some sort of recommendation in it of like what can be done, like if there's addresses to be removed or any types of like check-ins to be done. Sky and I both actually have contacts at Chainalysis, and I think they would be perfectly happy with just going forward with the signal proposal that I put forward back in 2021 for the funds to do the report. I think it was between $10,000 and $20,000 to do the report, and they would be happy just bounty wise submitting the proposal for like the first 50% of funds, and then of course actually once the report's done, receiving the second half of the funds. So if there's any thoughts or feedback, that would be interesting. There's also some interesting resources, and I could drop it in the chat about free resources through like APIs and oracles that Chainalysis is doing also to basically block or identify sanctioned addresses from interacting with your protocol or with your front end. But that's kind of a separate discussion, and I'll just drop that in the chat.
So tell me, wait, I like maybe I didn't fully understand.
Yeah.
Like we already done this, and what's like, because we already done something like that, no?
Yeah. So we did it, but okay, basically I had a trial subscription to do a review. And it wasn't, the report was done, but I would say it's not that thorough, and it wasn't the best resources because it actually accounted for things like decentralized exchanges and creating a risk score. And I wouldn't consider that optimal for our purposes because obviously we interact, a lot of the addresses that hold DXD interact with decentralized exchanges. So it would definitely be something, I think Chainalysis, their software would be optimal for actually removing those types of factors from the quote unquote risk score. And then just focusing on really specific areas that we would be concerned about for reports for DX Ventures, or just generally wanting to do some sort of, anti-money laundering when it comes to sanctioned addresses.
Yeah, okay. I mean, this is, I think this is important. I mean, I wrote this in the DX Ventures chat, but both for CowSwap and for Gnosis Safe, like I was talking to them about, DXDAO participating in one way. And both of them basically said that, they can't because they don't know the source of the funds and stuff like that. And then I wonder if this would like completely clear that out. We would be able
That's
to.
right, or potentially. I think the ideal would be, it's up to them. They make their own kind of risk analysis, but it would definitely help. I mean, we have a report now for like very specific uses that Sky has. I think other people have. But like I said, it's just not that, like, we could definitely get like a better report that I think clarifies things more. Because right now, like I said, there's accounting for decentralized exchanges, like addresses that interact with decentralized exchanges, which is like.
Tammy, is it true that one-off report using CipherTrace that was done because it was a trial period and stuff, like it's not really something we could publish publicly, and it's not.
Yeah, I don't know.
And so we gave it to one entity that we worked with DX Ventures, and it was sufficient enough for their one-off specific use case, I think, for their lawyers, because it answered their main problem, but it's not like something that we would publish fully out, publicly.
No, exactly.
And so it was interesting, so getting everyone's opinion or the community's opinion on whether people think that this is, I don't know of other DAOs that have publicly done this. It seems like it's going to happen more and more, and DXDAO leading in this path, as long as people think that this is okay to hire someone like Chainalysis to commission this type of report. Maybe they would even use it as a case study to share with other DAOs. A lot of people in general, like, you say Chainalysis, like people like, get worried about that company, but they had someone at ETH Denver. They obviously work with lots of governments and exchanges and things. It's pretty interesting for a DAO to hire a company like that to do a report on itself. That I haven't seen one of those in the past, and so if anyone has any like strong opinions about it, it would be good to hear.
I mean, I think we should definitely do it and do it completely transparently. So whatever the results are, publish it. And I also wouldn't be surprised if some European banks, if contributors are continuously like getting paid in crypto and then exchanging it to a bank account. I wouldn't even be surprised if banks start asking contributors about this, so it would be great to have it public. And
Yeah, I agree. That's another great use.
Oh, so Tammy, you're saying there's someone associated with their ecosystem that would use their tool to do this report on our behalf, but it's not like we're not hiring Chainalysis directly.
They would do it for like, I had issues, like I think, gosh, I don't know how long. I think it was last summer I brought this up, and man, I kept going back and forth with even like a contractor, because of the whole legal entity issue. But they're happy to do it for a bounty and use the tool. So yeah, and like they could still like basically I'll send the information over and they would post everything. I mean, we care about on-chain requests anyways. So, and I think I signaled the funds to, for the amount that we're doing for this report, but they would still, put the request on chain and we approve it and that whole thing. So kind of really within our realm of control.
But would we get like an official report? It wouldn't be stamped by Chainalysis then if it's not directly with them, or?
It would be with their software, and I can confirm all of that and make sure that we get something like actually like usable, official, all the details that we need, professional, all that.
But they might not stamp it as a company if someone's just using their tool, right? Which is still better than not. It doesn't. We don't necessarily need a stamp. They're not auditors. I don't know if they even do stamps, right?
Right. Like before, it wasn't going to be directly through them either. They had like contractors that like pay for a subscription to use their service. So it still would be their service doing the report and all of that. I just don't. I can find out specifically. This is actually really good. We're talking about this, like those types of concerns. Like, do we want to make sure that individuals are anonymous? All that kind of stuff. I can clarify.
Yeah, I mean, there's practical considerations here with the Ventures Fund. But I think it's an opportunity for DXDAO to kind of lead in this, right? Like for DAOs at large, to kind of like demonstrate integrity, right? And that we're taking responsibility in this area, even though there is no legal entity, right? That
Yeah.
So I think it's important. But I think I think how it's done is also like very important. I think we need to be very thoughtful about a lot of how we do this, right? Like, yeah, respecting privacy would be a concern. I think we should clarify like what sanctions exactly like we're looking to kind of screen for and why, not just kind of blindly accept U.S. sanctions or whatever, because I mean they might be kind of biased in ways that are not really truly good. And then I don't know, I think we should just be very thoughtful about how we do it and try to lead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was partially why I think the current report that we have isn't great, and there's like some other considerations to kind of like suss through, and like maybe a breakdown even for you guys. I'm actually, this link I just sent in the chat, this is like free tooling that Chainalysis just released. And I actually know the dev who worked on the Oracle, and he's really excited that now it's a free tool to be used. But basically, you can use it on the smart contract side, and they're actually going to do an API that you can use on the front end side to like basically just notify you of sanctioned addresses interacting with your protocol or with your front end. That'll be interesting. I'm actually proposing this for open, and I'm going to put together like a little thing on like what are the sanctioned addresses and stuff like that they would be screening for. I'm happy like once I put that together to also share it with you guys, and so it's just like more information to have to think about and how you want to go about this.
Yeah, and then to pick up on like the leadership part, I think DXDAO likes to pride itself on being open source, and maybe this is a little corny, but like maybe we should be more about like open knowledge, right? So that we're doing these things, and part of what we're doing is not just doing them for ourselves, but we're like demonstrating how this is done and like providing that knowledge to the wider community. So I think having like a public report with this is like, I guess not paramount, right? But I think that's kind of the next step, because that's what we're trying to do, is really like open source this knowledge. It also does kind of, I guess, remind me or kind of bring up, it is nice to have someone kind of looking at these things full time. So we are looking for someone to provide maybe some of these legal connections, legal coordination in terms of coordinating this. They can be doing it full time now that we don't have Tammy as much full time. But I think what's exciting about this one that we kind of already continued, right? This is something that we started, Tammy started kind of like a year ago with the hats one. It's kind of building off that one. But I can just think of so many other areas in terms of like open sourcing, like legal knowledge, where I think we could be doing a lot there. And I think we should be having someone looking at that full time that has some additional experience in that area, just because like this example is like a good one of where we can demonstrate some leadership, and like, DXDAO demonstrating leadership across, product decentralization, and now kind of like the legal front. I think it's important for us to have that across the board.
Agreed. Yeah, this is nice, and it's
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna stay like Sky. Thank you so much for letting me know about this, and I'm basically gonna like keep talking with Sky about it. Dave's been helping out with a lot of this stuff too, and leading other aspects of the legal stuff. But basically, like we'll try to tie in whoever is available to do the report, and try to get moving on this and get something up either in the forum, kind of soon, and have consensus on it.
To John's point, like if we get a few more like of the details of what the report would be doing in the, like that's what we need in the form before we would actually like move ahead with and request it, right? Does that sound right?
Yeah, definitely. We can even, let me exactly, I'm just gonna basically sync back with the person who can do the report. And then if we wanted to, you can have like a call or a meeting, or I could just like run down like the specs of like what it should and shouldn't review. And like I said, I'll also provide more information for you guys, because I'm doing it anyways, regarding the sanctions and like what exactly those sanctions are, and like what addresses would be, looked at and why. So it's more understood.
That sounds awesome.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other?
Tim.
Yeah. Thanks for joining. Any other questions around that? Maybe.
Is there anyone that thinks like this moving forward with something like this is unnecessary or like not good for the community?
Just FYI, if you ever frame it like that, people are not gonna like.
Or has
Like-
another alternative that
yeah.
thing?
Yeah.
Anybody who feels negatively about this, like, yeah, I mean, I think any thoughts about this are appreciated. I think there's definitely
I'm
some
always
risks to doing something like this, right? Like,
And to be honest, like, we don't even know the results, right? Like, let's imagine we will blow up like 25% of rep because someone is doing some shady stuff. It's some cleanup we need to do, right? And then it's like probably controversial.
Yeah, definitely.
It's probably Dave.
So there is some discussion still about like DXD, people that contributed to the bonding curve into the treasury. That's like source of funds, and then there's wallets that hold rep, which kind of in my mind, if you are just one person with a little bit of rep, like you don't have control of the treasury, right? You have some voting power, but you don't necessarily have control of anything. The DAO is what has control. And so initially we were talking mainly about doing this with the source of funds that DXDAO has, but do people think that doing, as there's new rep holders over time, like does it make sense to do this analysis on rep wallet addresses and keep that updated over time as well?
I mean, if it's relevant to the spirit of the report, like doing maintenance over time, I think would make sense.
Yeah, but like, I guess my point was like Hats didn't necessarily ask for any analysis on rep holders. They wanted to know about the source of funds, and that's what most people want to know. The analysis of rep holders would be an additional thing that we actually haven't really been asked for, but could be useful. But we haven't been asked for anything like that.
I guess it may make sense to start with something that's like, we have a clear objective, right? And a clear reason to do it. See how that goes. Like, not to like, just to keep it reasonably scoped.
And I like the public nature. I think that's like the key part of this, because we want to like be part of like contributing something broader. So like, what's something that we could have that's, yeah. I mean, I like the idea of having some branding with another, I don't know, chain analysis is doing something.
Yeah, this is. I think John mentioned this, but this is really the case of self-regulation, right? Like we're doing this ourselves. Like we're being proactive, and I think this is good and this is important.
And so, like, there's a question here: how often are we expected to do this analysis? And I think that is like a key thing here. Is like we're getting ahead of anybody telling us to do this. So of course, like if you go and look at some countries' laws, there are expectations that are pretty like laid out, right? They're out there. Like I think the US is going to expect you to follow their laws and the EU is going to expect you to follow theirs, right? And I think my argument is that there's internet organizations like DXDAO that are emerging and are only going to get bigger and stronger and more relevant. And the jurisdiction in my mind is the internet, right? So I think the goal would be to, demonstrate to nation states and everybody on the planet that like these entities are more than capable of like establishing best practices that, allow them to operate in like moral and like good ways that like contribute to humanity and like earn the respect of everybody else. And like that's what I would frame it around that, right? Like we're trying to do something like this shouldn't be done out of fear. This should be done out of a desire to like do things right, like to do things in a good way and maybe
to
better
do things
than they're being
DXDAO's way.
Yeah, exactly.
DXDAO's way, and like whatever DXDAO's way is like those things, and it comes from all of these different influences. But it's like we're trying to do things like the right way, but a new way.
and thinking for ourselves, right? Like sanctions are not universally good, right? They hurt people. Like innocent people get damaged by these types of things, and we should have our own way of thinking about this stuff, right? And scoping it in a way that makes sense to us.
So if there's like proof that some address is connected to some terrorism, the fact that we burn something or remove something, does that mean that we are basically a pro-Western sanctions or whatever?
No,
Because you said like there's like this internet space where we are like, where we have been born, and currently we didn't signal to any like geographical location or country or jurisdiction where we are like reside, right?
Right, and not everybody on this call, and certainly not every rep holder or DXD holder is from like a so-called Western nation, right? So I think we should frame it in a way that makes sense to DXDAO and isn't blindly following, you know, fill in the blank countries like rules about this stuff.
Yeah, I wanna maybe add here that, you know, the goal is to, you know, some of the not all regulation is bad, right? You know, you don't want to be financing terror. You don't want to be there. You know, lots of different things you don't want to be financing. So like these are the things that we're going to pick out, and you know, I think these are going to be recognized by this analysis, and we're going to decide. I hope that, you know, we're going to align with some of these things. Yeah, basically decide not to finance them. That makes sense.
You're not to finance who? What?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Like
Not to take finances from this, basically. Sorry.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I think like in 99% of cases, the report comes back and everything is good, you know. So I think it's, you know, we should definitely, you know, keep in mind that we don't want to just blindly follow US sanctions and stuff. But I think we should also wait to see the report, because, you know, I mean, I've done something similar previously, and there were like 2 addresses which were flagged, and you returned like 5 ETH to those addresses, and everything was fine. You know, like you don't block them from your platform or anything. It's just not accepting money from certain audiences mostly.
Yeah, I think we're very much talking about like the principle of the matter more than like, and that's and getting to some kind of conclusion, especially because we want to set a standard like the DXDAO standard, I think, and that's important.
So do we, I don't know, maybe we want to continue. I guess this is, if there are no other comments, then.
Yeah, I mean, the most important part is that DXDAO has a lot of attack vectors, and the history of like where the money came from and how rep came from, like when it was issued and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. My point was, it's very important that we know, like that we get light on this very specific attack vector, right? And the only companies who can do that is like Chainalysis and.
Like one question I would have is like, why is the thing that you do to send the money back to the address? That doesn't seem like a way to prevent bad things to happen if you know this address does bad things.
Yeah, well, in my specific case, it's the bank that tells you, if you have accepted funds from these people, we're not going to bank you, and you either return this money so you don't have money associated with that address, otherwise you don't get banked. So it was more, at Winding Tree, it was more a decision in regards to banking than anything else. Then, I mean, there's no government telling us what to do anyway, you know. It was more a practical decision on our side to be able to open a bank account. But I agree, it doesn't make sense, because you're giving the money back to allegedly bad
to
people.
an allegedly bad, like that, like to me it is like the opposite thing that from what you'd want to do. But yeah, I mean, we could discuss, this is the kind of thing we can kind of like, I think, delve a little more into and try to come up with a framework that actually makes sense and doesn't just follow some dumb rules that some bureaucracy put in place for God knows what reason, right?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, the giving back the money is like exactly that weird regulation. That's where regulation usually breaks, because it doesn't really make sense.
Well, I guess in the first place, you're not allowed to accept it at all, right? Like if it was a bank transfer, it wouldn't go through because it would be that's why I guess you give it back. I don't know, but I agree it doesn't make sense. But yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to move on to the next topic? We have bounties on deploying the swapper, basically front end on the different chains. And yeah, I don't know, maybe we want to explain a bit about like Socket's bridging API and the stuff that we can do here. And yeah, if we want to incentivize these things. Yeah, can you hear me?
I could hear you, but I lost. I wasn't quite. What are we talking about?
So the next topic is incentivizing deploying swapper decentralized front end on like other chains, basically.
So actually, there's no other chains to deploy on. I mean, it depends on what we're talking about. Are we talking about having the Echo router on other chains, or having actually swapper contracts being deployed on other chains?
I'm guessing it's the Eco router.
Yeah,
like I'm not sure. Yeah, Nathan, do you wanna?
Just eco routing and bridging.
So that means there's no deployment actually, or there is a front end deployment that we usually prepare, right? And then the community pushes out. So I'm not sure what the bounty would do. I mean, we could do bounties for every release, right? It doesn't have to be this specific thing. But yeah, I'm a little bit unsure how the bounty would work and what part of this deployment are we talking about.
Is Venki here?
What this sounds like to me, so it's saying deploying swappers front end with just the bridging and swapping modals on these chains. So I think maybe what that sounds like to me is adding support for these chains, like giving access to them via EcoRouter and the bridging. Deploying is maybe a confusing word to be used here because that would not actually involve any kind of contract deployment on those chains. It would just be kind of giving access to them on the front end. And I guess like the bounty would be to like reward people for making a PR to the front end repo on GitHub that would add support for a new chain. That would be my guess.
Yeah, so I guess this is part of like a bigger issue. The reason why it's Swapper specific here is because the Swapper team is currently looking at, well, Swapper contributor team is currently looking at like potentially including Echo routing in the front end for other and supporting the, be able to choose other chains like Polygon. This is not talking about deploying Swapper contracts on those yet, but if that happens, there's obviously, that DXDAO deciding to integrate other chains into its products is like a big decision that the community would have to decide, and the benefits and negatives of doing that, and how it affects, relationships between DXDAO and other projects and chains. And if we were to do that, like getting incentives or things from those chains or reasons to do that. And so it ties in with DXbiz in general, but it's really bigger than that. It's like, how does DXDAO decide to, what's going to have to happen for DXDAO to decide to start integrating other chains into the front end?
I guess we have proposals for that, right? When a swapper.eth like front end proposal is up with new chains on, then rep holders are voting on whether or not to include that chain. I'm definitely like in favor of expanding to like more chains in that front end. I definitely, and I feel like we're moving in that direction. I'm not sure like where bounties or incentives would fit into that, but we should look to like get some marketing around like, having eco routing on Polygon or whatever.
So like right now it's us who are operating Swapper, but in theory, like we could incentivize someone to operate Swapper on some obscure chain, basically.
Well, not the front end. Like the front end,
Wait.
No, it's also
not.
Why are we
Yeah.
operating Swapper? We're not operating Swapper. In my mind, we're not.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I
Alan
think
wasn't
DXDAO is for sure.
on Friday. He's not familiar with the concept. Alan, basically, we don't want to do a new deployment. It is just the front end, which has no interaction with smart contracts. And basically, the idea behind it is, since we're integrating the socket API and it does cross bridging to different networks that we're currently not supporting, it sounds like a good idea to have a front end on those chains and support those chains. And Venki suggested the idea about the bounties himself, because him and Zed as the guys actively managing the workloads for the Swapper team, they probably feel like it's too much to bother with at the moment. So that is on one hand. And on the other hand, we have the issue with the security. Like, if we put bounties for people to put PRs supporting those other chains, would we have the bandwidth to review them, and would it still be secure compared to us doing it ourselves? So that's the trade-off.
I have a really hard time seeing any external, like, team or person do anything regarding this task. So what we're talking about adding. So first of all, adding a network to Swapper that is not connected to the Swapper, like it's just in the network switcher, basically, right? That's one thing. Second thing is adding the markets to the Echo router. That's a very like specific Swapper thing that like people need some kind of onboarding. Like this is, I'm not sure we're ready to do. I mean, I would be happy if someone externally just came in and just did add markets to Swapper on a network that we don't have, and we could just prepare a release for this. We could try it, but I have a very hard time seeing this happening. And if it happens, probably one of our developers will do it from another, like another, alias or whatever. This is what I'm seeing. It must, We're already paying people to do this kind of work. I think we could plan them in instead. This is, kind of how I see it.
So Venki, there's your answer there. Do you want to say something?
No, I think I mean, I want to have a lot of bounties that Swapper gives out, but I'm struggling hard to figure out which ones could be, because most of them are priorities, and giving the prior task away, then it adds a lot of stress because it has to meet the timelines. And with this, let's say if we in the Swapper team release the first network that supports only the changes in SDK and the dApp, then it if we add a little bit more documentation, then we probably might be able to give this as a bounty for other networks to send PRs.
I mean, if we were like, let's say if we were like Uniswap or anyone else like that has high volume, I think the networks themselves would be interested, right? Or the community of that network, the token holder of that network, or the token holder of market, right? So it could be 1-inch token holders integrating 1-inch on some network or whatever. I don't know. I mean, we could try. I don't want to be too negative about this. In my mind, like we could do a bounty that says all this, but I have a really, really hard time seeing this happening.
Okay.
And if it's being like, if someone makes that bounty, it would probably be someone onboarding, someone interested in working for Swapper, or someone actually currently working for Swapper.
Okay.
But we could try. I hope I'm wrong. I wish we could do more bounties and have others do work.
I mean, this could, potentially this could, help us bring more people into Swapper, but yeah, like through the bounty. Okay, we want to move on to the next topic. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, this we shouldn't be abandoning this one. Like we should probably talk about it later on the Swapper call again, or the product call. We gotta figure this out, because it seems like on one hand some people want this to happen.
Well, I mean, I think the team seems like they're building the front end and updating it. Like I was just on the Swapper call, and it seemed like to be very optimistic. So I feel pretty, I don't know. I'm very positive on Swapper right now.
Totally, yeah.
I mean, we're getting a lot of developers coming into Swapper now, and we're basically expanding, right? I think we'll, like, this is a priority from our side. I don't think we'll wait for someone to do this bounty.
Yeah, that's true.
Venki wants to trade on Polygon. He's got all of his tokens there, but he wants to stay on Swapper.
Polygon, BSE, burned on Phantom.
Yeah, Phantom Avalanche. I mean, Venki, you could you mentioned this yourself. You're about to chat with Adam and see how much work needs to be put in something like this to estimate what's needed, and then we could take it from there. If it's too much, then it's definitely something. Yeah,
there's not too much. Most work is to investigate what are all the different dexes that is available, and what is possible to be integrated and so on. Once we get that in, I don't think it is a lot of work. But I will speak to Adam, and he has been away today. He's traveling, so yeah, I'll speak to him tomorrow.
I was very happy to hear this idea from you, Venki, because it is a great way to market Swapper. It is, in a way, like a light version of what 1inch is doing, and 1inch is only deployed on few networks, and they charge a fee, and the eco routing on Swapper is free of charge. It's a great way to promote our decentralized front end and our eco routing. And if people are drawn to our product, they could bridge some of their funds from those other networks to either Gnosis or Arbitrum and LP. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like literally a chain agnostic, chain agnostic, DEX agnostic swap mechanism.
Yeah, a public good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to? So I guess we can continue discussing this maybe on the Swapper call.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the next point, the KPI token bounties?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've already created a bounty mirroring what we did at ETH Denver during the hackathon. Actually, the virtual one is still going. Basically, incentivizing people to come up with new templates for KPI tokens and think of new use cases for Carrot's MVP, and we'll reward them for it. And I'm wondering whether we should, if there's any worth in leveraging Gitcoin for some marketing purposes, or we could just use the decentralized tool that DWork is and use our existing bounty there and just promote it on Twitter. Do you guys feel like it would look nice for us to promote this on Twitter and maybe in Discord?
Nathan, just to clarify, is this for Carrot V1 that's going to come out, or Carrot MVP?
The existing MVP, yeah.
And we can make custom templates for that?
Yeah, good question. Not that much templates, because we don't really want for people to kind of like create something new out of it, which will require a lot of work on the smart contract side, but more like come with interesting use cases. Either or, they can do both. They can either come up with some new template that would require smart contracts. We don't limit them to just use cases within the current boundaries of the smart contracts. So, but it's a good question. We could probably delineate both and like make it clear that those are two different things, and but we're welcoming both, because it's not just Carrot V1 supporting different templates. The current state of the contracts for the MVP are still kind of like malleable. We saw what Joe did with allowing NFTs to be put as collateral. Now we're working with DAppNode. They want to do farming campaigns in Swapper with Carrot, and they also wish to modify the existing contracts to allow vested tokens to be locked in Carrot. So, yeah. We don't necessarily need to wait for V1 to be ready to accept such submissions. These are still good ideas.
Cool. Yeah, like Nathan, how do you what's the next action item?
Well, just tweet about it. Yeah.
All right. So that's that, and then maybe the last topic is, first of all, Gitcoin is happening, Gitcoin grants, which is a great way to sort of contribute to different projects in the ecosystem. And then one of the projects we're kind of connected to is .limo, and we could consider donating to this as sort of like a DAO, which could be cool. I wonder if this is possible directly from the DAO.
No, it works. It's not as effective, given the Gitcoin system as a DAO, and you actually have to have civil protection, so you have to have a unique identity. It's the whole point is they want individual people, not entities and things. But what has happened in the past is there have been scenarios where DAOs give community members of the DAO money, and then people give that money, which is a little bit hacking the system. And there's things that Gitcoin has put in place to make that less effective, like pairwise voting. I think if everyone gives to the same communities, then it's less effective than if people randomly give to different communities. But we could just encourage our community to give. I don't know if we use the DAO money for that, or we just encourage it. Yeah, I mean, actually, I think we should encourage the DXDAO community to give to all of the projects that, not just ETH.limo, but all of the projects that are doing interesting things in the space, and that especially things that help with the goals of DXDAO. What we could do is we could publish a list of you can make lists in Gitcoin. You could have a DXDAO list, or we could publish an article that's DXDAO really thinks that people should give to these 10 Gitcoin grants, and here are the reasons why, because they're solving things that DAOs actually need, or something like that.
I like the idea of a DXDAO list, and maybe, we could probably put something together, and then sort of, the DAO, this is, sort of for marketing purposes, but DXDAO will publish that on the Twitter and say, this is what our community wants to contribute to. And then potentially we can even do matching. I think Ross is just suggesting the chat. instead of like a monthly allowance, like DXDAO could say, okay, we're going to match whatever 50% of what you contribute to these things, and add on top of it. So, I guess you can get refunded 50%. I don't know, something along these lines. Yeah, I don't know if there are any thoughts.
It's more an issue of the DAO not being able to like directly contribute to the public funding of public goods. Could we not just have like, each contributor gets a certain amount of money each month, and retroactively if they provide, because it's all on chain, right, how you provide the money, if you can provide that and then just request the payment with your contributor proposal? I guess that would be another way of getting people to do that more.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Like everyone spend $100 in Gitcoin and
just $100 every month.
Get reimbursed.
Yeah,
that's cool actually.
The other way for the DAO itself to contribute to that ecosystem is through like DXDAO can actually support a Gitcoin round like other entities in the space do, and then it gets used in the matching funding.
Oh yeah, that's also a good idea. Maybe for next round. Yeah. So Sky, maybe the next action item here is to create the list. And then, this is kind of like the lowest hanging fruit, right? Create a list, and then, we could all maybe add to it. And then maybe have, DXDAO sort of communicate this list has been chosen by like DXDAO members as like, things that align with our, our view. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've done this in even more narrow, concrete like goals using the DeFi awards in the past, and it was very hard to get people to even nominate projects to get awards from DXDAO. So that this same thing of make a list is related to that, and it was very hard to get participation, basically.
No, I mean, to make a list, it's not binding, right? Like we could share the list, and then like it's sort of like if you have any objections to any of the stuff in this list, then you can object. But then the DXDAO we can even do like a signal proposal, right? DXDAO approves this list, and we can just market that sort of like this is the list chosen by DXDAO members. DXDAO members are contributing to this, etc. And like Chris, I love the DeFi awards, the Panvala thing.
Should have done a POAP for the awards or NFT.
Oh,
there
before
was
NFTs were a
actually
thing,
we invented something called non-fungible trophies, and all of the winners have non-fungible trophies, and DXDAO has a mirror image of the non-fungible trophy as well. This is before NFTs were cool.
Sky was cool before NFTs were cool. Too.
Sky is an early adopter.
We also gave $5,000 or no, $2,000 to things like June Analytics because they didn't have any money, and now they're valued at $1 billion.
How much of the percent do we own of that company?
It was a
Nothing.
grant. They thanked
It was
us.
an award. They thanked us.
Didn't even give us an orange hat back.
But in a similar vein, actually, talking about donations, Copenhagen Flames reached out to me because they're doing like a stream for Ukraine or something, and they asked if we wanted to contribute something. But I told them like the DAO is apolitical, and even though we might support the cause, we don't really get financially involved. But then I told him that I would bring it up on this call just to hear other people's opinions. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the problem, the war and the issues people are experiencing, I think it's never enough, but there has been enough attention from the European Union and the United States. So I think we, as you said it, we we can just be apolitical and just, stay aside. But on the previous one regarding June analytics, and it's now too late to say tweet about it, but at the time they announced that they raised so much money at such a high valuation, do you feel like it would have been appropriate for us to tweet that we donated to them, that we gave them a grant? It would have been cool.
I mean, you can also do this right now, just sort of like an FYI or like a fact about DXDAO. We gave a grant to June Analytics right where they got started because we thought it was a cool project. June Analytics is now valued at over $1 billion. Sort of like
we could, yeah.
Yeah,
The only issue I see is
it's claiming a lot of credit.
Though.
Sorry, what? See, everybody was talking at once.
Yeah, sorry, Sky.
I was just saying. I mean, we can't really claim credit for making them succeed. They did win a trophy back in the day, and you can see that in their wallet and stuff. But
we're not saying we made them succeed, but it's like, we believed in June Analytics from the start.
Yeah. We kind of deserve credit for it. You never know how much it influenced them and helped them boost their morale and keep them working hard and achieve what they achieved today. So
yeah, let's jam on something in the DXbiz chat.
Yeah, something fun like turn back time, or when people do those tweets, turn back TBT to when DXDAO community voted an award for June Analytics or something, which when they were tiny. I don't know.
I'll write something down. I feel like this could be an interesting thing to do, like DX fact number 443, and let's start dropping these things. Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to chat about?
The activation, spatial activation at ETH Amsterdam.
Yeah, we still need ideas for what I don't know. We had mentioned like a nail technician with DXDAO and other things on nails. Do people like that idea, or if anyone has any other ideas, start to share them in the Amsterdam or DX.
That fried potato catering stand also cool.
Fried potatoes.
Yeah, I send you a link. Like, I mean, Netherlands is famous for fried potato, and there's like a famous French fry or like Dutch fry place that has a very famous shop, but they also do catering where they have like a bike, which you can. Well, I mean, they have cyclists and they can make fries there. But then we could like maybe buy like a DXDAO banner to cover the bike, so it looks like a DXDAO stand there. Print some, they serve it in a piece of paper or something, like in a paper box. We could print some custom DXD paper boxes. And potatoes are cheap as fuck. Like, it's just a cheap way. And people would love it. I mean, who doesn't love French fries, right? Or Dutch fries or whatever.
Okay, let's bring that to the Daoist team. Can like one bike make lots and lots of fried potatoes?
Yeah, they can make it on.
Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Lastly, did we confirm the time for the meetings from the 28th? I put it on the agenda.
Oh yeah. Wait, we have a gap between right now and the 28th, right? So it's like 2 weeks of the time being weird for Americans.
Yeah. So in the US, the daylight savings time got changed yesterday. Yeah, and in Europe, it's on the 27th, next Sunday. So both worlds will be aligned on Monday the 28th. So currently, we are still holding the meetings at the usual time, but for the United States, it comes as 1 hour later. And in Europe, it will be 1 hour later in 2 weeks. And then we can bring it 1 hour earlier, like instead of 4 p.m. UTC, we'll make it 3 p.m. UTC, right? I don't know if Sky could confirm, because that
sounds like the smart plan. And it affects some people like after the 28th, like people down in South America and things like that. It affects them the most because it moves their time like a couple hours or something like that, but it's in the middle of the day for them, so it's not on the extremes. And the reason we adjust is because we have people in the extremes, which is West Coast, actually soon Hawaii, and then also whatever Israel time zone is, and similar to that region. So those are the two extremes. So we try